Lon Safko, co-author of the Social Media Bible, published by John Wiley & Sons, the most comprehensive book ever written on the subject of social media. And today we are here with Adam Broitman. This guy's been out there doing mobile marketing and mobile advertising, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about social media. So, Adam, it's awesome to have you here today. Thank you.
Great to be here, Lon.
This is cool. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what your background is and who you are?
Sure. So I work for Crayon, which is a strategic marketing consultancy, and we help brands leverage conversational marketing at a very high level. I've actually only been there for about a month now. I was previously at Morpheus Media, which was an interactive ad agency. So I've been doing this quite a while.
Okay. In our earlier conversation, you made a distinction between mobile advertising and mobile marketing. Can you explain what each one of those are and what the distinction is?
Sure. So since I've been hearing about mobile at large, I have been hearing people talk about mobile advertising, and people are saying that 2005 was the year of mobile, 2006 was the year of mobile, 2007 was the year of mobile, and we keep hearing this from people in reference to mobile advertising. And when I think of mobile advertising, I largely think of putting banners on a WAP page, a wireless application protocol, or just a mobile phone. And, I don't think that is necessarily where it's at. I think mobile marketing, using the mobile phone, which is central to all of our mediated experiences, is much more palatable and much more likely to become the next big thing. And when I refer to mobile marketing, I'm referring to using the mobile phone for social networking, using QR codes or quick response codes, which is very big in Asia right now, where users can see a print ad and actually take a picture of it, and the optics of their camera can give them feedback from that ad and continue the experience of what would otherwise be a very two-dimensional marketing experience.
Can you explain a little bit about what you just said about taking a picture of an ad? And
Sure thing.
Please.
So the same way that a barcode works, what a lot of the carriers and the mobile manufacturers are looking to do now is, and this is actually very big as of last week with the announcement of the G1, the new Google Android phone. So what it is the optics of your camera can actually read a two-dimensional, 2D barcode, which has information embedded in it, so a URL, for example. So I take my camera, and let's say I am looking at an ad for craft, and I see a little code at the bottom, and it says, take a picture with your camera for more information. So I snap that picture, and it could bring me to a coupon. It could bring me to a mobile web page. It could bring me to any number of destinations that were laid out by the brand. So it's a really cool way to engage consumers, and I don't really consider it the push advertising of years past. It's more of that pull advertising where users can actually gain more information when and how they want to gain that information.
Holy moly. So, wow. So I'm walking through a bus station or a train station, an airport, and I see an ad that I think is interesting, and I pull out my camera phone, and I take a picture of it, and there's an embedded kind of a barcode, and then just by clicking on it, it then will take me to a URL which opens up a web page for a coupon or more information?
Exactly. And this is something that we'd often say that the U.S. is like a third world mobile country. We're so far behind in terms of mobile technologies, but when you go to certain parts of Asia, this has been commonplace for a while, and it goes so far to the point where the mobile phone is actually a payment device. So you can take a picture of an ad, you can get a coupon, and then when you actually go to shop for whatever it is that you got the coupon for, at the point of sale or the point of checkout, they can scan your phone and process that coupon.
Oh my gosh! I never even heard of that. When and that keeps coming up. This whole mobile phone craze that's happening outside of the United States. When I was speaking with Kakul Shrivastava, who is the director of Flickr, she was saying that right now cell phones. There's actually 3 cell phones for every human being on the planet.
Yep.
And then when I had a conversation with Amanda Vega, she brought up a really interesting point, is that outside of the United States, especially in third world countries, Asia, Africa, Russia, some other parts where they're economically depressed, people don't have the resources to actually buy a computer, so everything they do, email, text messaging, web access, everything is done through a cell phone.
Right. And it's the combination of the fact that there are more cell phones and the infrastructure in certain countries is simply not there. So the wires are not in place for the type of broadband access we have here in the U.S., the wired broadband access. So for many countries, it's simply a better user experience when they're accessing the web from their mobile phone.
So you think that's part of the reason that we're a little bit behind the rest of the world in mobile marketing?
I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah, I think there also has been a lot that's been going on with the carriers because the carriers have not been able to adapt quickly to this new environment, and they have not been able to monetize mobile marketing as quickly as they would have liked. So they're putting limitations on the types of things that you can do. The famous deck, the quote-unquote deck, the Verizon deck, when you power up your Verizon phone, they have selected content that they have hand-selected. And what that has done is had limited the types of content that users can get on a mobile phone. So with the inception of Android and open-source mobile content development platforms, everyone can now create for these platforms. So I think we're just at the beginning of the realization of mobile content, mobile marketing, and that space at large.
You had mentioned WAP, W-A-P. Can you tell our listeners again what that stands for?
Sure. So that's the Wireless Application Protocol. And I kind of giggle a little when I hear that because I think that the web is the standard platform and there are many ways to access it. But what the carriers tried to do and what developers tried to do was develop a protocol that was specifically for the mobile phone. So there are WAP pages that adhere to different standards than the web. Now, the problem becomes is that developers need to learn new ways to develop content, and the same content is not available on the PC as it is on the mobile phone. So it becomes a little bit hairy, and it's certainly not the best way to leverage the mobile phone. And I think we're going to see a decline in the usage of WAP and more web standards simply appropriated for the mobile experience. So Facebook, for example, when I go on my computer, I have something that's appropriated for my 21-inch monitor, and it's appropriated for that experience. Mm-hmm. But when I go on my iPhone, I have the same content. I'm looking at the same content, but it's appropriated for a much smaller screen and a much different experience.
Okay. And a lot of people, especially in the entertainment industry, is calling this the fourth screen, which I only just heard recently, but it is making as much of an impact as television, computers, or movie screens.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. A couple of years ago, people were referring to it as the third screen. Actually, one of the first mobile marketing companies was Third Screen Media, which was then bought by AOL. Now they're calling it the fourth screen. I personally feel that we're going to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screens, all different screens, but it's ultimately all going to be the same content, just accessed in different ways.
I completely agree, and I'm absolutely shocked that with more and more cars getting LCD screens for GPS, that we're not seeing a full computer internet interface built right into the cars with a complete operating system.
Right, and I don't think we're very far off from that. I think that there are a lot of politics involved. and a lot of people who don't stand to benefit from, as I said earlier, Verizon has not figured out the mobile marketing or the mobile advertising landscape just yet, but they're beginning to. And I think some of these platforms are going to open up both on the mobile phone, in automobiles, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to see a much more open landscape in terms of just media in general.
Yeah, and I think that is getting back to some of the stuff that Google Open Social is kind of pushing towards. And I use the word Google where everybody is actually involved in that. And I was actually quite pleased to interview Kevin Marks, where he talked about Open Social and how all of these even seemingly competitors are actually kind of coming together to try to form a standard for transmitting all of this information back and forth, either between applications or, in this case, even between technologies.
Right. Well, it's amazing how quickly we forget lessons of the past. And when AOL came on the scene a number of years back at the inception of the Internet, it was a walled garden, similar to the way that Facebook is a walled garden and MySpace is a walled garden. And the model simply doesn't work. People want to own their own data. They want to bring it wherever they want, which is this whole data portability movement. And the walled garden model simply doesn't work. So I think that this move towards open standards is inevitable. The fact that Google is pioneering it and some people are not happy with that because they feel that Google is trying to control information is preposterous in my opinion, because it really is an open system and Google isn't controlling anything. They just happen to have the largest reach in terms of the ability to monetize all of this content and all of this activity online.
That open garden, open source, I think is a great point. Being involved in the computer industry as long as I have, looking back at the first Apple II and Franklin stealing all of their ROM codes, and then, of course, Steve Jobs freaking out and locking up the Macintosh and almost destroying Macintosh because he closed it up so much that developers and other people could not. You had to actually buy a special wrench even to open the plastic case.
Yep.
And then when they did open it up to developers, that's when Macintosh began to flourish. And then I think and that's a hardware example, and I think we also see that with Linux or even WordPress, where we have open source. So I think you're absolutely right. The more people you have involved developing for you, the greater the strength of that platform.
Sure, which speaks perfectly to the point of why OS X is so successful. You just mentioned Steve Jobs. He did a 360 when he came back to Apple, and he opened up the platform. Now everyone's developing for it, and now you have an operating system that is enjoying, I think it's 7-8% market share in the U.S. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it just hit 9%.
9%. Well, that's up from a meager percent a couple of years ago. It's indicative of what it is we're talking about in terms of opening up and allowing the wisdom of crowds to take over.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think back in the 90s when I was doing server reports, I think we just about hit 1% total market share for Apple, and now they're actually pushing 9%. And if they keep going, I think Microsoft's really going to have a run for their money.
Yeah, and the scary thing for Apple is what's going on right now on the iPhone with the App Store. I hope they don't go back in this direction. I'm sure you've heard of some of the applications that have been kicked out of the App Store that Apple has said. There was an application called Podcaster, and they said, no, that's too close to our iTunes application, and they're not allowing it in the App Store. So I just hope that Apple continues along the road of open source and allows application developers in the App Store, because if not, everyone's going to move to the Android marketplace, which is completely open.
Absolutely. And sometimes there's a fine line between complementing and non-competing. And sometimes you really actually have to be really careful with censorship, because once you lose that integrity, you're going to lose your customer base.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit more about the Google Android.
Sure. So this is something that has been obviously a very big deal in the last couple of weeks, and something that I feel a lot of people were poo-pooing and saying that it was getting pushed off and it would never come to fruition. But the notion that anyone could develop for this platform, and anyone could develop applications. I'm actually looking through the marketplace now, and there are already a tremendous amount of applications that are developed, and the thing has not even been released yet. So the potential for the Android platform is really tremendous, and I think over the next 2 years, the mobile landscape is going to look nothing like what it does today. I think the iPhone certainly was a game changer, but Android is, in my opinion, going to be the new game.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. It was a tough thing for me to decide whether or not to go to switch carriers over to AT&T and to go with an iPhone. I eventually stayed with Verizon and went with the Dare, which is kind of a knockoff of the iPhone. Really great platform. But yeah, with the Android coming out and Google behind it, Apple really will have a run for their money on the iPhone.
Yeah.
Is there any conversations leaking out about whether or not it's going to be non-platform related or is it going to be just for one carrier?
Well, from what Google has said, the platform is completely separate from any hardware or carrier. So
Great.
The Open Handset Alliance, it aims to create this platform much like Linux or Unix, where it is not dependent on any specific type of hardware, and in the mobile arena, any carrier. So I don't think that they could actually go back on that because Google doesn't actually own it. It's a product of the Open Handset Alliance, which is pretty interesting. And I think the play there is Google knows the more access they have to put their ads next to relevant content, the better off they are. And since they have such penetration online now, they'll be able to parlay that into many different arenas, which is why they were bidding on the 700 megahertz spectrum a few months back, because they didn't want someone else to purchase that block and own those airwaves. So the more open the world is, the more that Google can monetize the world of content, because their technology is so far superior than anyone else's, which we see in the fact that Microsoft or MSN only has such a small percent of search share, and Yahoo also has a very small percent, because they simply don't have the targeting capability to offer the advertising solutions that Google does.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Over the last 4 years, I've taught SEO, SEM, and every couple of months I have to update all of my charts because Google's market share just keeps getting larger and larger, while Yahoo, of course, and Microsoft's always had around 12%, but even that seems to be dropping. And with the skill that Microsoft has on duplicating other companies' products, I'm really kind of quite surprised that they really haven't taken some of Google's ideas and actually implemented them themselves.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds cynical.
Yeah, well, I was actually out in Seattle, I think it was about a year and a half ago, just around the time that the Ad Center platform was launched, and I was talking to product managers, and they were saying that things were in the queue and that it would become easier for agencies, and I was at an agency and we did a lot of paid search, and it was simply not worth the time it took to run these campaigns, because even if the ROI was there, it was so small and it took so much time to implement that for certain clients we would just put all of the budget into Google because it was simpler, the ROI was there, and it was scalable.
Yeah. And that's what I'm seeing in the industry too. And I even have to kind of teach it. If you're looking at 50% market share and everybody else is splitting up the 50%, really, where does it pay to start your campaign? Well, with the one that the company that's going to get 1 out of 2 of your customers. So
right.
Yeah. In your blog, you talk about social networking 2.M. What does that mean?
Well, as much as I hate to propagate nebulous phrases like that, I felt the need to tag it something. And I think that social networking is all the rage these days, obviously, social media. Everyone is talking about it. And
even writing about it.
Even writing about it and developing models, and marketers are jumping in and trying to figure out how to monetize social media. It's my opinion however, that we're really just at the beginning. And the reason that I say that is because social networking online is a very virtual, impersonal experience. But when you add the mobile phone into the equation, it makes it much more adaptable to real-life situations and much more personal. So an example would be that online, again, going back to when I was talking about Facebook before, online, I'm simply in front of a screen. I'm reading what my friends are doing. You know, I can comment, I can respond. But on my iPhone, I have a location-aware device with a camera, and I can say, not only can I say, here's what I'm thinking or here's what I'm doing right now in front of my computer, because if you're typing in front of your computer, chances are you're not doing anything other than working. But on the mobile device, I can say, I'm at the park, it's beautiful out, a bird just flew by, and you take a picture of it. It adds much more real-life elements to the social networking. True. And elements, I can be out at a bar and I can crowdsource, say, let's all get together now and have a meetup and talk about something, and it adds a much more human element to social networking. And it's something where companies like Whirl or Wear or Loop, we're starting to see all of these social network tools that take advantage of the location-aware device, and I think that's going to become more and more ingrained in the entire social media space.
Yeah, I agree, and with the phenomenal success of Twitter and people tweeting all over the place, I interviewed Francine Hardaway, and she uses her mobile phone with Twitter to say, for example, I'm at the intersection of 24th and Camelback, and I'm heading into Houston's for dinner. Anybody in the area, would you like to join me? And people from all over the place just pop in and sit down and have dinner with her.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I had been using Twitter since it came out. And when I got my iPhone, it added a whole new dimension to Twitter, because not only was I tweeting thoughts, I was tweeting presence, like you said, so the concept of presence is added in, but it's also the concept of life logging. So wherever I go, even if I am tweeting a thought, I'm taking a picture, I'm getting a location stamp. It's even for my own benefit, because I can look back on my life and say, here's what I was thinking, here's what I was seeing, here's where I was. And people can tap into the lives of other people in a much deeper way now than ever before, and it's really profound in my opinion.
It really is profound. I mean, if you look at the number of people that have as followers or that they're following, or the number of tweets that they do per day, or how much we count on this technology. For example, like Jot. I count on Jot an awful lot, where I pick up my cell phone, record something into it, and then by the time I get back to the office, it's been transcribed into text, and it shows up as a text message in an email. I mean, we are really counting on our cell phones. I can't imagine what would happen if we ever lost them.
Yeah. Yeah, my cell phone is by my side from morning till night, and dare I say, I think I fall asleep with it in my hand at certain times.
Well, let's talk a little bit about marketing and advertising. I'm really I use Verizon, and I'm really quite surprised that I don't get any advertising of any sorts on my cell phone. I mean, I get the Verizon that says your account, your bill is ready, the invoice is ready for the month, but I really don't see advertising. Where is the advertising? How come I don't see more of it?
Well, it's actually surprising that you haven't seen it. A lot of times they'll sell space on the deck itself. So when you actually power up your Verizon phone, and there is the menu of the different things you can do, a lot of times they'll insert an ad there, or on any number of WAT pages that you might go to. Now, I don't know what type of user you are, but a lot of people who are operating from the deck will be more exposed to the small banner ads that sit at the bottom or the top of the page that you're looking at.
Okay. Is cell phone mobile advertising, is it somewhat effective? I mean, how does it compare to some of the banner advertisements, say, on a website?
Well, it's like the beginning of the web. I remember running a campaign a couple of years ago for one of our clients. It was actually the New York Times, and we were running a campaign, and the click-through rate was phenomenal. The click-through rate was triple any click-through rate that we had been seeing online. The conversion rate, however, was abysmal, and we spent a whole lot of money, and there was very little return. So I still think we're at a time where people are clicking on these ads just because they're curious. They want to know what's on the other side of a mobile banner ad. And I think that when people realize that they have to wait for the page to load and it simply is just more advertising, I think they abandon very quickly. So from what I have seen, the results are not phenomenal unless it's incredibly contextually targeted to that person. And due to the fact that there's not that much inventory out there, or not as much as there is online, it's kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
Mobile marketing, on the other hand, SMS short codes, and the ability to use the mobile phone for CRM, to follow up with consumers with relevant messages, that I've seen much greater success and much more response.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, so it's like the early days of the Internet. People really don't completely understand and know what the landscape is, so they're more curious and kind of exploring rather than converting.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Well, and then of course, the good news is that as people become more experienced users, that conversion rate should go up significantly.
In theory, yes, and I think also with the proliferation of the third generation networks and Verizon saying that it will have its 4G network out soon, I think the speed at which we're able to traverse the mobile space will aid in people's ability to convert. So I oftentimes am sitting waiting for the bus, which I don't actually take, but I always use that example.
Yeah.
But someone, for example, is waiting for the bus, and that's their downtime, and that's when they're looking at the web on their mobile phone, and an ad pops up, they click on it. The last thing they want to do is wait. So if it's not a seamless experience like we've gotten accustomed to online, I think oftentimes people will simply abandon the effort.
Yeah, and that you're absolutely right there. We have kind of become spoiled with broadband on the Internet where you just click on something and instantly the page loads. Mobile is a little bit slower. Now, you had mentioned the G4 platform. I'm not familiar with that.
They're 4G, so
4G?
Right now AT&T and Verizon are both deploying their 3G networks, and Verizon has said that their 4G, I can't remember off the top of my head when, but I believe they had said next year their fourth generation mobile network would be deployed. So we'll be online, we'll be emailing, we'll be doing all the things that we do in front of our home computers on our mobile phones much quicker, and I think that will also spur the adoption of mobile content and mobile marketing and advertising.
Totally agree. And I don't see that any of these cell phone companies are suffering much from selling music and video. I mean, that seems to be a huge industry, and that seems to be working out pretty well.
Sure. I speak to people all the time, and selling music, now Verizon has their new service where they actually did an experiment with Pearl Jam where right after the show was done, you can actually download the concert you just saw, which is so far ahead of where we were even a year ago. I thought that was the most amazing thing. You go to a concert and you want the bootleg, and maybe an hour after the concert's done, you're driving home, and you can actually download that concert over your mobile phone, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, talk about a call to action at exactly the right moment. I would imagine the conversion rate on that would be really high.
Right, and that opens up the ability for them to insert marketing messages and for marketers to be able to message consumers. So maybe they're giving that content away, but it's ad supported. So I think that is another way that marketers will be able to insert themselves into the conversations that are going on in the mobile space.
And you mentioned ad-supported, too, and I just have to mention that comes up continuously throughout all of these interviews, is that it gets back to the old television. You can watch commercial television where they interrupt you every 8 minutes with 4 minutes of commercials, or you can buy your way out of that by going to cable television. At least that's what they sold us. Right. And nowadays, it seems that the freemium model is really become the standard business model in the industry, where you can get stuff for free, but you're going to get barraged by advertising. And if you're willing to pay a little bit, then we'll remove the advertising, and you can have it basically branded by yourself or your own company.
Right. I think the freemium model is really the only model for startups, for startup content companies. When I talk to anyone, or I'm consulting and speaking with people who are starting a new venture, I think that you kind of have to give people a little taste of the value that they will be getting, and then let them gauge their ability to stomach all the advertising, and then you can upsell them with various services. And it's not even just taking away the advertising, but there's the ability to upsell services. So on my iPhone, I downloaded Twitterator for free, and it's a great Twitter application, but I read that there were even more services on Twitterator Pro, and I think I paid maybe $5 for those services. And it was a great model, and I'm very happy with that purchase. And I really enjoy the freemium model because I was able to use it and try it and then upgrade.
I totally agree, and I like what you also just said is about the different stages, where if you have a limited budget, you can get in and tolerate the ads, but you can do pretty much everything for free, and you can kind of buy your way up through first eliminating some advertising, then eliminating more advertising, and then actually branding the website. Ning had a great freemium model where you can totally brand everything, the URL, the website, remove even the Ning logo, and you're still only looking at $33 a month. So even then, it's still reasonable. Right.
I think the Ning's model is great, and the viral loop, as they call it, I was reading the founders, and they were referring to the viral loop, has created so much traffic around and so much usership around Ning that $33 a user adds up very quickly.
Yeah, when you have 500,000 users, that's not too shabby.
Yeah.
Is mobile marketing, mobile advertising, is that only for the Fortune 500s, or could smaller companies consider it?
I would say at this point, I really only see Fortune 500 brands using mobile marketing. A lot of entertainment companies are using it. I really don't see any, well, I don't want to say mom and pop, but I don't really see any mid-sized companies using mobile marketing. I think that when I was at Morpheus Media, some of our smaller clients, we were experimenting with mobile search via Google, but we weren't doing a whole lot of mobile advertising because it was simply not cost effective. So the CPMs for a mobile banner are much greater than they are online because there's simply not as much inventory and there's more demand. Yeah. So I think at this point, mobile advertising is largely Fortune 500, and in terms of mobile marketing, it's a little more complex to get the short code. Not that it's that expensive, but it takes a little more time and a little more know-how. I think that we'll begin to see services for advertisers, and I'm sure they're out there already, that allow smaller marketers to take advantage of SMS and QR codes. I know there are a number of companies right now that are working on it. There's a company by the name of Augme that does these QR, these 2D barcodes, scan by. There's a number of them out there, and I think we're going to see more of them, and smaller marketers or marketers with smaller budgets will be able to take advantage of some of these newer technologies.
Yeah, so as the technology kind of broadens a little bit, we get into our fourth generation, faster downloads, the bar probably will be lowered from the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, and eventually even to medium-sized companies, you think?
Yeah, certainly. And I don't think we're really that far away. I think that it is going to take a shorter period of time this time around, and I say this time around in reference to the onset of the web, and I'm paralleling the onset of mobility and the web, because I don't necessarily see them as mutually exclusive. I see the mobile web or the mobile web experience as an extension of the web at large, and I think that it's going to take a much shorter time for the cost of these things to come down and smaller marketers be able to take advantage of it.
Excellent. So basically what you're saying is actually 2009 is going to be the year of mobile.
Well, it's we always laugh about that one, the year of the mobile. I think that we're certainly going to experience a jolt in mobile marketing. I think that 2009 will certainly be more significant for mobile marketing than 2008. I don't think there's going to be a year of mobile or any one period in time when we're going to say, this is it, this is mobile marketing. I think it's going to be iterative over the next couple of years.
Of course, of course. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this conversation about mobile advertising, mobile marketing?
Well, I think that it's just a very exciting time. I often refer to the mobile device as our remote control for life, because it really has the ability to control everything. I control my calendar, my contacts. Quite literally, there's a program on the iPhone that can control my television set. So more and more, the mobile phone is becoming the centerpiece of everything that we do in our mediated lives. So that's why I'm interested in this space, both professionally and also from an intellectual standpoint, because it is moving so quickly and it is really changing the way human beings interact with one another, and it's just absolutely fascinating.
Well, and speaking to that, just to close here, where can people find out more information, first of all, about you? How do they get to your blog? And secondly, what are some of your favorite websites? Where can you send them where they can learn more about mobile technology?
Sure. So my site is Media Circus. It's actually a mediacirc.us, not a mediacircus.com. And that's where you can find more information on me. My company is Crayon, and the site there is crayonville.com. And in terms of my go-to blogs, there are a number of them. I certainly rely a lot on Read Write Web, and while they're not specifically talking about mobile all the time, they do often touch upon mobile. There is TechCrunch's Mobile Crunch. There are a number of other resources that I can certainly share. Anyone who wants more, who wants to share my OPML file and get some of the other mobile blogs that I read, feel free to shoot me an email, adam@crayonville.com, and I'd be happy to share that file with you, and you could see a more extensive list of some of the mobile blogs that I have in my RSS reader.
Well, that's really useful. Thank you very much for sharing that with our listeners. I'd really like to thank Adam Broitman for being with us here today and talking about mobile marketing, mobile advertising, and social media. This has been Lon Safko, the co-author of the Social Media Bible. Be sure to check out our other valuable social media tactics, tools, and strategies that can be found in the Social Media Bible book or at its companion website, www.thesocialmediabible.com. For more information about me, Lon Safko, or to learn about how I can speak to your company, please go over to my website at www.lonsafko.com. And Adam, truly, thank you for sharing that great stuff with us today.
Well, it was a pleasure.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Lon.